Metacognition, thinking about thinking. A couple things are going on. Part of a conversation around Carol Dweck's research about growth versus fixed mindset was just in a wonderful session as a learner where we were thinking about thinking, even though that wasn't what it was specifically about, but it inspired me to hit record and say a couple things about thinking about thinking. With the fixed and growth mindset, I'm no expert on it at all. And it's very much the fixed mindset is something is or it isn't. And there really isn't opportunity to change or grow. The growth mindset, conversely, is, oh, if I don't know something, I just don't know something yet. And there is the ability to learn. I did a project where they had a keynote speaker talking about this specifically. And, one thing was the idea of seeing somebody doing something better than you. The fixed mindset is that's a threat. That is competition. The growth mindset is, oh, look, this person is a stronger player doing better than me, whatever the thing is. I can learn from that. So, this thinking about thinking, I think that most broadly, it really is about looking at whatever your task is at hand and what are the types of thinking that you'll need to get that thing done. I know that's super broad, but for example, when you're trying to solve a particular problem, a very common thing is to sit down and you're coming up with ideas and you're judging ideas and you're scratching things out and you're kind of muddling all these different kinds of thinking together into one session, one pool. And that's when you might be coming up with super great ideas, but you're immediately shooting them down, right? Like we're putting ourselves in both generative mode of brainstorming and convergence mode of decision. So I'm referencing, for anyone who knows, the diamond model of the creative problem solving process, SIPSI model, also very overlappy with design thinking and the double diamonds. But basically imagine a diamond shape. And what direction am I going to be in? On the left side, the first half of the diamond is the generative mode. That is when you know the specific kind of thinking you want to do when you are in brainstorming in ideation mode is you just want to be generating. Like ideas, the more the better, the weirder the better. Let's just stay in that mode of more. Importantly, separated from the other half of the diamond, which is converging, which is decision, which is selection, which is, okay, now that I have a giant pile of ideas, what's the criteria at that midpoint that's going to help me figure out what are the ideas worth pursuing? Prioritizing, sorting, all that great stuff. Different types of thinking. And again, so often what we do until we are aware of these different functions in our thinking is we just mix it all together. Biggest symptom of this is you are excited about an idea, you start working on something, and immediately that inner critic shows up. That is the selection, that is the judgment. Now, there is really good functions to deciding, selecting, prioritizing, but it often shows up in the form of the inner critic who's just a freaking jerk, right? Like all of it's about, you're not doing this well enough, that idea isn't going to work, we don't have the money for that, we don't have the time, da-da-da-da. Separating those phases out. So in the particular session I was in today, what I absolutely loved was, in this case, it was separating out strategy. Let's put that on the left. I think this is the left. I always get confused about how images are mirrored in video. That the first phase, separating the strategy thinking, the big picture thinking of here's the thing I need to do, and what is the key idea here? In this case, like what is the hook that is going to catch somebody's attention and make them curious? And separating that kind of thinking from the story I want to tell about that hook. Because on this side, the strategy thinking is, what is my objective? What do I want this particular message to do? And again, how am I going to find that hook that's going to pique somebody's curiosity? So that thinking is very big picture. It's very strategic. It's very much about the objective. Like, what is it I need to do? What do I want to do? And then the writing, the crafting, that type of thinking is about narrative. It's about creating that connection, talking in the audience's voice. It's about how am I creating that connection? How am I building that relationship with that person? They're just different types of thinking. So importantly, being aware of what kind of thinking do I need to do here for this part of my problem solving, of this part of my objective, which in this case is writing a really strong, clear message that speaks to your audience. Great objective. Separating that strategic thinking, big picture thinking, from the writing, the narrative writing and connection building, relationship building of actually writing out that message to that particular audience. So love, again, that metacognition. I need to do this type of thinking. I might have to do this thing. I have this objective I want to meet, but first I need this type of thinking. And then later I'm going to need this other type of thinking. Right. So the first thing is being aware of different types of thinking we need to do to get something done. Two, not four. Two is separating out with time those different phases. So one is narrative. One is being aware of the kinds of thinking you need to do. Two is separating of those types of thinking. And now three, now I got my numbers right, is actually putting time between doing those types of thinking. That is iteration. That is, I'm going to focus on this type of thinking. I'm going to tie a bow on that for now, knowing it's then going to be ready later to take what I did here into the next type of thinking I need to do. That is the fresh eyes. That is the sleep on it factor. That is just needing that sense of like percolating, like I did really good work here and it's going to be ready for me when I need it again. And in between this thinking and this thinking, all sorts of good stuff happens. You get a breather, you get to sleep on it, you get to percolate, you get to, you might have some ideas over here and then like something comes out of absolutely nowhere, probably something incredibly mundane in your life, right? And you go, wait a second, this thing has a really interesting consequence to this type of thinking. That sounds really abstract. You're either picking up what I'm putting down or you're not, and that's totally fine. Or, for so many folks, it is what is our physical state that's going to bring in, that amazing new idea. So often it's getting the ideas in the shower, right? Or you are kind of on, autopilot driving and that really key idea shows up. And so importantly, that's happening because there's that separation between this type of thinking and then the next type of thinking you need to do for whatever that big, beautiful project is you're undertaking. I have no idea if that was useful or interesting, but it was on my mind and I was thinking about thinking. So use that as you will. Any comments? I'd love to hear it, and keep thinking about thinking.